Hey everybody. Today we are going to install a Powerhead here on my new 125 gallon native tank. These are the golden shiners I have in this tank, and they're getting a little freaked out. I've been going around the room sort of prepping for this video, covering up my other tanks, turning some lights out, and I think all the activities got them a little spooked. So not going to be a big deal today. I considered doing a water change and a little bit of tank maintenance and everything, and it actually turns out that my nitrates are below 5 parts per million, which is just, I'm just not used to seeing that. This tank is obviously very lightly stocked with these minnows only for the moment, so with the nitrates that low, the tannins are beginning to build up, but that doesn't bother me, and there's not really that many tannins in there to begin with, so we're going to leave those alone. So we've really only got to install the Powerhead. Now you'll notice on this end of the tank I've got all this beautiful sparkle in the water. That is because I have some LEDs positioned on this end of the tank, and if you will notice, you'll see that I've got part of my spray bar angled upwards just to create a little bit of surface movement, and that gives me that nice little sparkly ripply effect with the LEDs. The problem I'm having with this tank, and I'm not really sure if a problem is the right word, but if you look down at this end of the tank, we get to where the water on the surface is very, very still. Now normally that is what I want in my tanks, and that in fact is exactly how I set this tank up, was to have a nice calm still surface at this end of the tank. But for what I'm going to be stocking this tank with eventually, I think it's a little too calm. And the way the water moves on this end of the tank, whenever I have any floating detritus or bits of food that don't get eaten, which obviously don't last very long, they tend to just sort of float and swirl at this end. You can see how my floating water sprite there just kind of hovers and swirls around and doesn't really move anywhere. So I have purchased another Powerhead. It's pretty much identical to this one, except while this one is an 850 gallon per hour, I have purchased a 240 gallon per hour Powerhead, very much smaller than this one. So we're going to position it in this corner, angled upwards, and we're going to try to create a little bit of surface agitation on this end as well. I do have some LEDs at this end of the tank, and I'm hoping maybe if I get a little bit of ripply water at this end of the tank, not only will it help break up any surface film and move any detritus around, but it'll also give us a little bit of that lovely sparkle down on this end of the tank. So the whole thing has that sort of natural sunshine look, because that's the way that looks to me. When I see that sparkle in the water, that to me looks much more like natural sunshine rather than fluorescent lights on top of the tank. So that's what we're going to go for. We're going to install that little Powerhead, and we're going to just hope that it gives me some sparkle. But if it doesn't, it's at least going to give me the water movement I need, and then we can have a look at that afterwards, and we'll talk about what kind of effect it's had. Alright, well, I didn't get the sparkle I was hoping for. I wasn't really expecting it, but we'll get to that in a minute. We did get a little bit of surface agitation, if you want to really call it that. It's not a lot, but it is enough to move the water around. As I said, it's only a 240 gallon per hour Powerhead, and you can see the difference between the two there. So I had to actually position it kind of high up in the tank. I don't think I like it up there, because when I do water changes, I'm going to have to unplug it. Otherwise, it'll be exposed when I do a larger water change, and that'll just be obnoxious. So I'll probably wind up moving it down. This is just my preliminary run. You can see I still get a lot of swirling movement here, so I'm not getting the effect I was hoping for, which at the same time is kind of okay, because if I had floating plants in here, they would all just get pushed to the other end and clog up my surface skimmer anyway. So I'm kind of thinking I need to have at least a little bit of swirling motion around here on the end. My chief concern in a tank like this is as I get the stock load heavier and heavier, I'm going to want a lot of water circulation for gas exchange purposes, but we can talk about that later too. Right now I want to talk about the light and the LEDs and the sparkle and why we're not getting it, or at least why I suspect we're not getting it. Now you will notice against the back, it almost makes it look like the cloth hanging in the back is being blown by the water, as though the cloth itself were inside the tank. That is the amount of twinkly light or sparkle you get that comes off of the fluorescent tubes. I have a couple of 6500K T8 tubes in a standard shop lamp, and that's the sort of sparkle you get. So the tubes only go 4 feet out of the 6, and this end of the tank has some inexpensive LED fixtures on it, and that is the twinkle and sparkle you get from LEDs. So if we look, this end of the tank, not looking at the back wall but looking down into the water, we see that nice little shimmer and sparkle, and it looks like sunlight dapple through the tree leaves or whatever. It just gives you a very distinct sparkly effect. Now as we move over this way and we get underneath the light from the fluorescent light, that sparkle tends to go away. And if you will notice, right about where that Java fern is about where you see the end of the sparkle, maybe a little bit on the top of that rock to the right of the Java fern, but to the left of it there's pretty much no more sparkle. And then when we get to this end of the tank, there's virtually no sparkle at all. Now there is 2 LEDs sitting directly above where we're looking right now, and while there's not a ton of surface agitation, you are able to see that there were ripples. So why aren't we getting any of this sparkle? Well, my belief is that the reason you get the sparkle, again, I don't understand the mechanism behind it, but the reason you get the sparkle from the LEDs is because the way the light is produced, you have these sort of parallel wavelengths of light that are shining down into the water, and that's what gives you this beautiful effect like that. So what happens is, the way light is produced from a fluorescent tube is it's very homogeneous. The light just comes out in all directions, and not only moving away from the source in all directions, the wavelengths themselves, instead of being in nice neat rows, the wavelengths are coming out in all different directions. So those wavelengths cancel out any parallel wavelengths that are coming from the LED. You will get the faint glimmer now and again on the front side of this log where the light from the tubes is not shining on it so much, and you'll actually get to see a little bit of the ripple from the LED light shining on it. So let's take a look for a moment. Again, pay attention to where the sparkle ends off to this side of the tank, off to the right there. Take a look at how little sparkle we have on the left side of the tank, and we will look at it without the fluorescent light on it here in just a moment. So now you can see that sparkle goes as far to the left as the light will actually project from the lens on the LED. The lenses on those LEDs is probably a 120-degree angle, and you can see now we've got much more of that sparkle. So whatever the mechanism or whatever your belief or understanding behind why we get this effect from LEDs, you can clearly see de facto that the fluorescent tubes kill that effect. Whatever is causing that, whatever your belief behind the mechanism behind that, that is a very clear visual demonstration that the LEDs are actually, that effect from the LED is sort of canceled out from, by the fluorescent tube. If we come down to this end of the tank, this is just LED light only at this end of the tank now, and while it's still not very dramatic, you can see all the way to the back of the tank, you can see that sparkly sort of shimmer. Now the LEDs are in the very fore of the tank, they're on the front panel, and it is an 18-inch deep tank, so where the water is actually moving, where we're actually getting our surface agitation, is all the way in the back, and up here in the front where the lights are shining through, you can see how little movement we're actually getting. You can see by the detritus in the water, we're getting a lot of water flow, and that's good. We're seeing it flow across the surface, and then we're seeing it flow down the glass and deep into the tank. That's what I wanted. But not getting a whole lot in the way of sparkle. Again, we can do something with that if I get more sparkle, and if I get more LED, but that would have to be if I get rid of the fluorescent tube altogether, because the moment I turn the fluorescent tube back on, that very homogeneous sort of scatter barrel light that comes off of those fluorescent tubes just negates this effect anywhere it is shining. So this end of the tank will go back to the way it was when we saw it before, where just about to where that fern is, you're going to see some sparkle, and then anything to the left of this fern is just going to be sort of evenly lit the way you'd expect to see it lit from a normal T8 shop lamp. So maybe in the future I will be able to afford a larger LED fixture, and we'll get something a little more serious and a little more effective on this tank, and maybe we'll go for this sort of sparkly effect through the whole thing. I don't know, but I did find that an interesting little visual experiment, and it proved me right that the fluorescent fixture definitely kills that effect with the LED. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe if you're not already. Got a lot of time to go on this tank. We got a lot of stuff left to do on it. This is my native tank, and again, there will be plenty of videos coming up in the very near future, so make sure you're subscribed. So thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you real soon on the next one.